Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about something that I want you guys to kind of have some perspective on. We get a lot of questions about all kinds of things regarding our practice. So one of the things I want to give you guys an idea and really kind of take you, pull the curtain back and show you kind of how I approach thyroid problems and working up someone's health. That's what I intend to do with this live stream we're doing here. I want to show you kind of how I think about the whole person and some of the priorities that I try to work through, and the things that are like our prioritization, how we work through things. Because I've seen a lot of people that have been to a lot of different doctors, and in no way do I mean this in that the person that you're seeing is not doing the very best that they can for you. But I've seen a lot of people that have been to doctors, and they've tried to help them the best that they could, but they take an approach that really doesn't look at the most important biochemical markers first, or the most important physiology first. And it's really kind of this approach that I'm going to share with you guys is really kind of like building a house. If we were going to build a house, we wouldn't say, all right, let's build a house, let's go buy the shingles. No, what we would do is we would go and we'd find our spot to build our house, and we'd purchase the lot, and then we'd have the lot cleared and graded, and then a foundation poured, and then the whole process begins at the beginning, right? Which you can't put shingles on a house that's not built, right? So that's kind of an extreme, analogy or explanation, but it holds true, because sometimes people, they start working on someone's health, and they don't really begin with the most important physiological markers. And a lot of times what that can result in is that we're actually supporting and working on someone's symptoms rather than identifying root drivers of their poor health, or of their thyroid dysfunction, or really of their symptoms, okay? So what I want to do is show you the framework that I utilize that helps to guide me, okay? And a lot of this is adapted from a lot of different doctors that I've learned from, and so this is not something like I was so brilliant and I figured this out. No, I really learned from some very brilliant doctors, and we all have them to thank. I have them to thank, and I continue to learn. So I'm not saying that there's not a better way, okay? I want you to know that. This is just the way that my approach that I take to working up someone's health, to looking in great detail at what's going on and trying to give me direction as to what they might want to do next, or what they might need to do next to help really support and improve their overall health, okay? So guys, if you like what I'm talking about and you like these videos, please do me a favor and share them. Right? Share this with other people. Help us help other people. Help get the word out, because not enough people know about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here and just talk about my approach to investigating your thyroid. And really the first thing is, guys, we want to start with this, and we want to consider what is the most basic functional unit of your body. So what is the most basic functioning unit in the body? Can anyone tell me? Like, what's the most basic functioning unit? Like, what on within the body, the most basic functioning unit? And there's probably a lot of right answers here. The most important one that we look at, though, 4 letters. Okay, what is that? Most basic functioning unit of the body. Because if this basic functioning unit cannot function optimally, then you're not going to have systemic health. Nothing else is going to function optimally. Okay, so no matter if you have a thyroid disorder, or if you have an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's or Graves', or an irritable bowel condition or digestive health, you still don't just look directly at the symptoms. You want to look and survey the overall body chemistry and make sure that the body can carry out the most basic physiological functions. Because if it can't, you're going to have a really difficult time getting the person healthy and better. So what is this most basic functioning unit? Does anyone know? Anyone post in the comments for me? What's the most basic functioning unit in the body? 4 letters. Come on. This is what everything here, Metabolic Priorities, these are going to be our roadmap that all are focused on making sure that this is functioning optimally. What is it, guys? You know if you've seen my whiteboard video, because I drew out this diagram of how the thyroid physiology works. And right here, we talked about the end point, the end target of the thyroid hormone and what it actually stimulated. Does anyone know? I'll give you a hint. Starts with the letter C. Post in the comments if you know, guys. What is the most basic functioning unit in the body for our purposes? Starts with the C. You guys got it? What is it? You feel like you're on The Price is Right? No, I'm sorry, it's Wheel of Fortune, right? What is it? The cell, guys. The cell is the most basic functioning unit of the body. Because what do cells do? Cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs. Organs together make up systems, and that makes you. So if you have dysfunction on the cellular level, and we're going to talk about these things here, if you have dysfunction here, you're not going to be able to get the person healthy. I mean, I can just tell you right now, we're going to go through this, and if you're not considering cellular function and you're not looking at the person's health through this lens, in my experience, my approach, you will have, there's a lot more opportunity to kind of get lost and work on things that may be more symptom-based than root cause-based, first of all. And the other thing is that you can really you can waste a lot of time and you can become very frustrated. And even with this approach, it's not like foolproof. I mean, we can still do everything under the sun, and sometimes we still don't know. And that's just the reality of life and of healthcare, trying to help someone, because we're all so unique. And that's why also, guys, you'll see that this framework, it will explain to you better why when people ask me, like, hey, what's the best supplement for my thyroid? It's really like more specific, like, what is your problem, right? I mean, that's really the issue, and then I can answer intelligently. Otherwise, we're just wasting a lot of time and money buying random things and really not addressing the cause, but maybe just treating a symptom. So the roadmap, these metabolic priorities, my roadmap, are focused on making sure that the cell has what it needs to function. Okay, guys? So my first priority, when I get labs, when I look at someone's laboratory results, what's the first thing I'm going to look at? Does anyone know? I know a lot of you know because I've worked with a lot of you. I can spell. That's an N. Inflammation, guys. Inflammation is like number one priority. Now, inflammation is so important because we're looking at things like, we're going to look at things like, let's see, I should have made some more space, but we're going to look at C-reactive protein, an inflammatory marker, homocysteine, I'm just going to put HCY. We're going to look at cytokines, TO, so CYTO. Cytokines, which are cytokines, homocysteine, and CRP, are the main things that I'm really looking at. The things that I'm measuring are going to be C-reactive protein and homocysteine, inflammatory markers that can literally make your cells less sensitive to your hormones and disrupt slow down neurological signaling, create multiple problems across multiple systems. So if we look at inflammation, and if you have high C-reactive protein or high homocysteine, if you're autoimmune, you're going to have most likely, and it's not been addressed, you're going to have an issue with cytokine fluctuations, which are these proteins made by the immune system that can create a lot of problems for cellular function. So this is like step one, because if I had determined that you have high inflammatory levels, then what does that mean? That means that if we can improve the inflammation, if we can determine where that's coming from and decrease it and improve the inflammation, we're going to improve hormone sensitivity, we're going to improve multiple systems and multiple functions at one time by addressing a very, very important root driver of impaired physiology, basically, guys. It's going to help you feel a lot better. So inflammation is the top priority always. I look at those things, and this is like our roadmap, right? Inflammation is going to be able to affect everything else we're going to talk about here. So number two, what do I look at? Does anyone know? Can you tell me what's my second priority, guys? I know some of you know. RBCs, red blood cells. Red blood cells are next. And in particular, why am I looking at red blood cells, guys? What do the red blood cells do that's really important to us? They carry something through the bloodstream that every cell in the body has to have. Every cell in the body has to have something that the red blood cells carry. Oxygen, right? Red blood cells deliver oxygen to every cell in the body, right? And they carry away the carbon dioxide. So the red blood cells are number two, because guess what? If you have low red blood cells or poor red blood cell, maybe you're not, technically if you have low red blood cells or there's some dysfunction, there's a few other things that can occur. It can be called anemia, where you don't have enough red blood cells. They're not enough in number. You can't have too many, but we're really talking about deficiencies in red blood cells. And excuse me, guys. And so you can have deficiencies in red blood cells. You can have not enough iron. You might not have enough B vitamins. You can have anemias of chronic disease, and this is just basically where you can't carry oxygen efficiently through the bloodstream to the cells of the body. So you have cellular dysfunction because the cells need what, guys? The cells need oxygen, right? Cells need oxygen. They need blood sugar or glucose, okay? And they're going to need something else, which we'll talk about in a second. But the cells need oxygen, blood sugar, and one more thing we're going to talk about at number 6. But the red blood cells deliver oxygen. So if you're anemic, then what happens? The cells are dysfunctional. The cells can't produce energy efficiently. They can't carry out their physiological processes. And if your cells can't carry out their processes, then what happens to the tissues? Well, the tissues are made of cells. So you can have dysfunction of the tissue. And if the tissue makes organs, then what can you have? You can have dysfunction of the organ or the gland. And if you have dysfunction of the gland or the organ, they make up systems, and the system can dysfunction. And then that makes up you ultimately. So you have to come back to do the cells have what they need to function? You cannot just skip that arbitrarily and say, let's focus on your gut. It's not an effective approach. Now sometimes the gut may be the cause of some of these problems. Like maybe you have poor stomach acidity, or you have a bacterial infection like H. pylori that decreases your ability to absorb iron, and you become iron anemic, right? Maybe that's a gut-related problem that we have to address. That's why we look at the whole person. We try to address everything that we possibly can, look at multiple systems, and not just be ultra-focused on thyroid hormone levels, for example, okay? So red blood cells are really important. What's number 3, guys? You guys, it's already right in front of you. Already wrote it. Number 3, the third priority. So first we have inflammation. Second, red blood cells. Third is blood sugar. I wrote it before I should have. Now, why is this? I explained it here, but blood sugar is going to be the third priority I look at. Okay, now I would, just to kind of jump, with the red blood cells, I would get like a CBC with differential. Okay, so that's just, and I would also get iron. I always get iron markers. I get a ton of markers, guys, that your doctors are not going to order because under the insurance-based model, it is not medically necessary. And if they do order it, I'm just telling you, they're putting their neck on the line for you. There's almost no insurance plan that will let you order everything that we order in our office because it's not considered medically necessary. And I'm practicing a different model that's looking and trying to determine problems before they come up. I'm not practicing a model that's focused on only order labs that more likely to correspond with a reason for their symptoms. I survey everything that I can, and I get a lay of the land, and we start working on the problems that we find, or we get more testing. Okay, it's a different model. So the insurance-based model, guys, understand that this is why this stuff is not covered, because it's not considered medically necessary under guidelines that your insurance company has established. Your doctor's in a contract with that insurance company. If they write prescriptions or order testing that's not covered by that plan, that could be construed as violating their contract, not following guidelines that have been established and that they agreed to by signing their name. It could be construed as insurance fraud. There's a lot of different things that your doctors are pressured. They have so much pressure on them. So when you go and you don't understand why they're not ordering the test that you just want ordered, the ones that I've talked about, if they get defensive and call me crazy, well, they're under a lot of stress. They don't know exactly the model that we're using here, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't take offense to that at all. Everyone's in different places, but I want you guys to understand why we always get our own blood work, because these are the types of things that you have to look at, and they're not going to consider that necessary for most people. And they're going to tell you that they're going to order it sometimes, and they come back and they don't get you all, and you don't get all the labs. It's just a lot. Okay, so let's continue though before I digress further here, because I will. Blood sugar. Blood sugar is really important because, guys, blood sugar is critical for the cell. The cell has to have oxygen and blood sugar plus one more ingredient to produce energy. Okay, so if you're hypoglycemic and you don't eat all day, or if you have really high blood sugar and you have high insulin, you're going to have problems getting blood sugar from the bloodstream into the cell for energy production. And guess what that does, guys? Let's tell the story again. Low blood sugar or failure to get blood sugar into the cell results in cellular dysfunction. And what do the cells do? The cells make up the tissues. And what do the tissues do? They make up the organs, and the organs make up the systems. And if all that's dysfunctional, I mean, what kind of symptoms can you have from that? Well, I mean, you have the obvious like hypoglycemic or insulin resistance symptoms, but you get dysfunction on a cellular level. So what's the problem? Well, it could be anything that a cell controls, right? If the cell's dysfunctional. So you're going to shift metabolism. There's a lot of things that the body's going to do if these are not there. You cannot skip this stuff. You always have to assess this, and then you have to reassess this and make sure that these things are improving. Because if these things don't improve, then you're going to have a lot of problems achieving optimal physical health. It is a fact, guys. These are basic physiological functions that cannot be ignored, and then oftentimes are, because it's the different lens that we're looking at this through, right? So blood sugar. Okay, what's number 4? What's my 4th priority? After blood sugar, inflammation, red blood cells, blood sugar, it's going to be liver and GI tract. Liver and GI tract. So the liver is responsible for so many biochemical processes. It's unbelievable. And most of you know that if you have thyroid problems, a lot of important things here happen with the thyroid physiology, right? T4 gets converted into T3. It gets converted into reverse T3. It gets converted into T3 acetic acid and T3 sulfate. All forms of T3 that are very important and that we want to measure and look at so that we can better understand thyroid physiology. The liver is extremely important for the clearance of hormones and so many other functions. So we assess the liver and we look at enzymes in the liver. We look at a lot of different things so that we can understand, is the liver under stress? Now, the reason I put these together is because if you have a gut problem, you have digestive tract problems, and we can look at those very easily symptomatically and see what's happening, you know, to get an idea if there's a problem or not. I mean, if you're constipated, or if you have diarrhea every day several times a day, or if you have IBS, or you have a lot of bloating or other issues, you have a problem with your GI tract, and it needs to be figured out. Because if you have problems with the gut and you have a lot of inflammation, it's going to put a higher strain on the liver, okay? And the gut is so important for so many reasons. It has one of our barrier systems, right? The whole term and the whole idea of leaky gut. Leaky gut is just when the small intestinal wall or the intestinal wall breaks down, letting food proteins, bacteria, and other things through that gut wall into the bloodstream, triggering an immune response, right? That's the leaky gut. That's one of the Dr. Fasano, Alessio Fasano, Harvard researcher, pediatric gastroenterologist, who's done fantastic work, and he's helped us better understand that, you know, to have an autoimmune condition, you have to have, at some point, you have to have at least had a leaky gut, had a genetic predisposition or a genetic, the genes to react to your own tissues, and a trigger, something that initiates it. So the gut is extremely, extremely important too. Now, sometimes these things, we look at them, and one of them is more important, and we work on that more specifically, right? But the gut plays a really important role here. So this is also important for absorption, dampening autoimmunity. So many things with the gut is just critical. But you can't look, all these things are before this, right? This is my hierarchy. These things have to be addressed. So maybe there's a gut infection that's causing the inflammation though, right? So that's why you can't just look at one thing. You can't leave stuff out or you're going to miss something. And then you can always, if you get a good panel and you start working on these things, even if you're doing just dietary approach, and if you don't, you know, if you don't get testing, you can utilize this approach and this framework to say, okay, I'm going to reassess and see if I'm making progress. Reassess and see if I'm making progress. And recheck these things. See if you're on the right path. So liver and GI tract. What's number 5, guys? Anyone know? Anyone know what number 5 is? Okay, this is 1. Vitamin. What vitamin? I know some of you know. What vitamin am I going to say? What vitamin does everyone tell you need to take and everyone's deficient in? You guys know. What vitamin helps to improve immunoregulation? What vitamin helps with calcium absorption? What vitamin does our body make that comes when we're exposed to the sun? You all know this. D. Vitamin D. Now, why do I care about vitamin D? Vitamin D, it's called a vitamin, but it's actually a hormone. It's one of your fat-soluble vitamins. So you have 4 fat-soluble vitamins. Does anyone know what they are? What are the fat-soluble vitamins? Meaning they have to be absorbed with fat. What are they? Fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamins A, D, E, and K. Fat-soluble, have to be absorbed with fat. If you have problems with absorbing your GI tract, If you have absorption issues, you might have a problem with vitamin D, especially if you're not getting exposure to the sun. So vitamin D is really, really important because it primarily acts as a hormone in the body. And one of the things that's most important for us, especially if we have thyroid, autoimmunity, or any autoimmune condition, is that vitamin D helps to promote regulation of the immune system. See, vitamin D helps with the production of regulatory T cells. Okay? Regulatory T cells are immune cells that help to balance basically immune system function. Okay, let's just keep it that simple. Vitamin D is absolutely critical. So we always check vitamin D. Always check vitamin D. Okay, immune regulatory function primarily is what I'm looking at here. Number 6, what is our last one, guys? I know some of you have to know. It's also the missing piece right here. Like, what does the cell have to have normal physiological function? Come on, you know, oxygen, blood sugar, and there's one more thing. Okay, what does the cell have to stimulate the cell so that it can take oxygen and blood sugar and produce energy and cellular function? What's this last thing? Guys, my whiteboard video, right? My thyroid whiteboard video. We talked about how the thyroid hormone was made and it traveled through the bloodstream to this last target, the cell. It's thyroid hormone, guys. Thyroid hormone stimulates the metabolic engine, stimulates the mitochondria that produces energy, that uses, it's inside the cell, that uses oxygen and blood sugar. So your thyroid hormone stimulation, thyroid hormone, okay? And which thyroid hormone in particular stimulates the cell the most strongly? The one that we really want to know about levels, right? It's getting tricky. Free T3. Free T3 is what really stimulates the cell, drives the cellular function, right? So we have to have oxygen delivery, red blood cells, blood sugar. So we look at fasting blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C, triglycerides, uric acid, a lot of different things to give me an idea. I look at your symptoms. Do you have symptoms of hypoglycemia? Do you have symptoms of insulin resistance? Do you get tired after you eat? What's your diet like? I'm going to look at your diet history. Do you have gaps between meals? All these things help me to put together a picture of, do we have blood sugar delivery to the cell? And so we can look at these things and tell us cellular dysfunction. Thyroid hormone levels. So here we're going to look at thyroid hormone physiology, not just quantities. Okay, there's a difference. Okay, so I'm saying thyroid hormone physiology. Quantities and amounts of the hormone are important, but that's one of 24 ways the thyroid can break down, the thyroid hormone physiology. So, how does inflammation play into this? Remember, inflammation will literally block cellular, the cellular stimulation. It doesn't fully block it, but what it does is it decreases cellular sensitivity to your thyroid hormone. It's really important, guys. If you have, this is my framework. This is what I'm going to look at first. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to look at everything and look at your history and say, does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, or if we have, positive antibodies to your thyroid and we know you're autoimmune, then we're going to consider working up the immune system. So how would we work up the immune system? Well, if there's any GI symptoms, we'd probably start with the stool panel. Then we would go to probably a pathogen screen, looking for bacteria, viruses, different types of fungi, parasites, and things that can trigger and stimulate an immune response. Then we would look at food sensitivities. We would look at foods very thoroughly to see what foods are you having and are stimulating an immune response. Okay, and then we would look probably next at chemical reactivity. What environmental chemicals are you reacting to, if any? All those things drive, so there's 3 different things we look at primarily with autoimmunity, or at least I look at very closely. And we would work that up to see if we couldn't remove the things from your environment, from your diet that are triggering the autoimmunity and pushing it. And then once those things are removed, we're going to put together protocols to support healing the gut, supporting blood sugar, dietary interventions, everything's temporary nutritional supplementation, getting your vitamin D where it needs to be, making sure that thyroid physiology is right. So we might, and a lot of times we'll look at hormones, right? We'll look at sex hormones, we'll look at cortisol, we'll really assess the adrenal glands. That's very common as well. But they're not, these things will tell me, and the history will tell me if the adrenal glands are a problem. But remember, the adrenal glands and their dysfunction is always secondary to something else. So something else is driving an adrenal dysfunction, right? Like inflammation or an infection or food sensitivities. So we're always investigating, why are the adrenals reacting the way they are? So this is the framework. This helps me to not get lost when I'm working with people. And it's been very, very helpful. So you guys can thank, really, there's a lot of brilliant people that figured this out. And then I put my own spin on it a little bit, but it's, we gotta be thankful there's some brilliant people doing research and sharing their experience with us. So guys, if you need help with any of this stuff, if you're trying to figure these things out, you can go to like our website and learn a lot more. I've got probably hundreds of videos. You can go to drbradstrick.com. You can also go to hashimotosdoctor.com/one-on-one if you're interested in like doing distance consulting, or if you need help, right? You can go to Hashimoto's consult and we can do a 15-minute consult. We can do that and I can help give you direction. And I'll give you everything I've got during that period of time. But if you want help, we can work with you from a distance in most states. We can order labs and help you with a consulting perspective to help you really work and figure these things out as best we possibly can. So guys, I hope this has been really helpful for you. I hope this helps you to kind of understand a framework, which is really important, because I talk about a lot of different topics and people are like, well, where do I start? Like, it's just a lot of information. I get it. It took me years before I was convinced that I had a good framework and that I was ready to really start working with other people one-on-one. So guys, I hope this has helped you out a ton. I just really, I'm going to try to keep teaching you guys. You guys keep learning, keep educating yourself so that you can be better advocates for yourself. You can be better partners with your doctors. We can all help each other. That's really the goal here, is to just become better educated. And if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. Let us know. Guys, please share this with other people. If I see that you're sharing these more, like, this is my way of like voting, right? You guys share it. It's a vote for more like this, more on workup and those types of things, okay? So guys, I hope this helped you out a ton. I really appreciate you so much. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll try to talk to you tomorrow if I can, okay? Thank you. I hope you guys have a good night. Hey guys, Dr. Shook, thank you for viewing our videos. I hope they help you out. If you want to, just subscribe to our channel somewhere here. You can watch a video that YouTube's actually selected for you, so hopefully it'll help you out. If you need any other information or resources, just look in the description. We've got links to our website, to our 9 lab test guidebook, and everything else that we do. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great